Hello, welcome again to another edition of Matters of the Heart, brought to you by Haverhill Community Television and Pentucket Medical Associates Cardiology. I'm Seth Bilazarian, a cardiologist with PMA, and I'm here again with my associate, Dr. Srivastava, to talk about a subject that he's quite expert in and enjoys teaching and speaking about, and he's going to be talking about the issues of food, dietary intake, issues about diet and health, and I think primarily a review of a recent Time magazine article that was a cover story about what we eat, and it's a matter that we talk about with our patients quite frequently, and there's an evolution. Some of our patients get frustrated because there was a time we told them not to eat something, and now we're understanding some different things, so he's going to set us straight as of this moment in time. So I'll turn it over to him.
Sure. Well, thank you. You know, as we were getting ready to prepare to have this show, I think over the weekend, in my mailbox came Time magazine, just as you said, and I'll hold it up so people can see. But this was the cover story entitled "What to Eat Now," and it primarily focuses on an article written by Dr. Oz of the TV show. But also very interesting and very thought-provoking, and I figured a lot of people would be seeing this, so it made me want to talk about it, review it. A lot of the opinions expressed will be coming from the article here, certainly, but he makes a lot of compelling points and interesting arguments. And to start, I think one very interesting thing to point out is that, you know, for the first time in a long time, this generation in this country, access to food, for the most part, is not an issue. We, in fact, have just the opposite, unrestricted access to an abundance of food. And that's not everywhere, obviously, I understand that. But by and large, one could say that the United States has access to unrestricted abundance of food. We're even able to, you know, process it and freeze it and prevent contamination so we can store it and use it later. And these are all remarkable things. But what appears to be a triumph of nutritional ingenuity may also be a downfall. Well, this generation may be the first generation to have a lower, or I should rephrase that, a shorter life expectancy than the previous generation. So our health is declining, and it doesn't take much of a stretch of the imagination to think that it could have a lot to do with what we put into our bodies, what we're eating, but also our lifestyles as well. You know, the statistic, we've talked about it on this show numerous times, that more than 2/3 of adults, more than 1/3 of children in this country are now overweight or obese. It's a staggering amount of people. And so, like I said, for the first time in a long time, this generation is being faced with the prospect of a shorter life expectancy than the previous generation. And that's a little unsettling, certainly. I don't know, I'm sure for you, you know, and it's not that people don't want to eat well. People aren't looking to eat lousy, aren't looking to be unhealthy. It's just the opposite. We have this discussion in our office all the time. People come in, they want to do the right thing, they're trying to, but it's very hard. And most people, despite wanting to, just there's so much information being thrown at them, don't know what to do, what the right thing to do is. And I'm sure you see that in your office as well. People come in with those types of questions. I think there's a lot of frustration amongst people that the quote-unquote rules keep changing and what they're being told keeps changing. Just like you alluded to in the introduction here, but you know, once upon a time, red meat was considered very healthy and pasta was bad. Then it flipped around and pasta was bad and red meat was very healthy, and it's flipped again, and the Atkins craze came and it flipped it again, and so people just don't know what to do or what to stick with. There are lots of fad diets that come along, South Beach, or Mediterranean. There's a new one out there called the Paleolithic diet, which we can talk about, cabbage soup diets, grapefruit diets, lots of fad diets, and people just don't know what to do. With that, though, there is some ray of hope or good news in that we've learned a lot more now, and I think we can have a better discussion about these types of things.
Yeah, I think that what you said is very true, and it is a source of frustration for patients, like that they say, you know, I was told to do this and that and whatnot, and I think that two things have changed. The one you mentioned, like what to eat, is sort of in evolution. There was a time where, you know, during my career, 18 years in practice, we used to say low fat was the key, everything else was okay, and we've talked in the past about how that led to people eating more carbohydrates, and that led to being overweight because of the processed sugar and carbohydrates. And I know you're going to talk about that more. But the one thing that I don't think you mentioned, which I think you would completely agree with, but I'll get your insights about, is that it used to be, I think in my career, that diet was thought to be important, but not paramount. It wasn't the most important thing. And I think that we're getting to the point where we're almost saying that this might be more important than anything else. Like used to
diet,
be, right, the diet
okay.
in general. Choosing the right diet and being good about diet, both quantity, portion control, and as well as choosing the right foods. This may be actually more important than anything else. And this is a time that dates to the ancient Greeks.
Right.
It said that Hippocrates said that really our main medication or treatment for disease should be food.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really something that I have to say I've been sort of late coming to, and I think maybe our specialty has been.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I agree 100% wholeheartedly with you about that. And I have a lot of patients, and myself included, who anecdotally will say, I feel so much better when I'm eating X, Y, and Z and avoiding the garbage, for example. And it's an anecdote, but I think there's something to it, certainly. And so, interestingly, so this article, this Time Magazine article we're going to refer to frequently during this session here, this segment here, leads off by asking the question, do you want to get healthy? And obviously all of us are going to say yes. And his Dr. Oz's first statement is very provocative, but he says, then forget about diet soda and forget about fat-free foods. And that raises a lot of eyebrows, because I think a lot of people switch to diet sodas, fat-free foods. They purposely scour the aisles at the grocery store looking for all the foods labeled fat-free, and largely because we've told them to do that over the years. Not just you and me, but society, the government, media, et cetera, has largely, and there's some downsides to that. And his prescription for health, obviously with moderation, but is to dive back into a lot of the old-fashioned stuff, eggs, whole milk, some fats, nuts, wine, chocolate can be good as well, coffee even. Now we can go through all these things and talk about them, and I'm not saying pig out on all these things, because moderation I think is really a key in all this, but there are reasons and simple reasons why these things might be good to get back into. So to jump right into that conversation, I think underscoring all that, there's not really a simple rule that can say divide good and bad. It's not always that simple with foods. It's a lot more complex, and we're learning that certainly. Fat, for example. The name fat itself is a very indictment on it, and people just don't like the name fat, and so they try to avoid fats. And we've learned, certainly, and we've talked about this numerous times on this show, that there are some good fats that play a role in health. So not all fat is universally bad. So the monounsaturated fats like canola oil or olive oil, they can reduce, they can lower your LDL, raise your HDL. There are polyunsaturated fats like omega-3 fatty acids, also very good for you from a heart health standpoint. The bad fat, generally speaking, can be considered saturated fat that you get from animal products. Trans fat universally is accepted as a bad fat. Those are hydrogenated oils like you see in margarines. Cholesterol, there's a lot of debate as to whether dietary cholesterol is as bad as we once thought it was. That's what you see in egg yolks, for example, some dairy, some meats, etc. And actually, to date now, we're starting to see some saturated fats, such as coconut oil specifically, may actually have some beneficial effects that we didn't really think about beforehand. So lots changing in this field. But universally, trans fats are no doubt no good. And in fact, I think there's been a push to really eradicate it from prepared foods.
Outlawed in New York City in restaurants.
Right, exactly.
So monounsaturated fats like the olive oils are the best for what we know right now, and we're subject to evolve, and people will be frustrated, but that's the state of science. We're learning. Monounsaturated for now the best. Trans fats should be avoided like the plague, because that's what they are.
Yeah.
But the one thing you didn't mention, and I would just want to emphasize, is that one fair criticism of fats in a diet standpoint is that there's more calories per unit of fat than there is per unit of protein or per unit of carbohydrates. So that if someone thinks that they want to eat a certain amount of food, if they eat that amount in fat, they're going to have a lot more calories, which is likely to cause more fat gain.
But I would counter with that too, though, that the fat leads to early satiety as well.
Okay. So they're able to eat less.
Yeah, that they're content sooner. That one argument about the fat-free food craze was that you were left with eating just carbohydrates and salt, weren't filled up, and you'd be leading to eating more later on. That's where I think his point, Dr. Oz's point, that there are no simple good versus bad things here. It's a much more complicated discussion. That a little bit of fat is probably good and okay, but just the right fat, certainly. Not trans fats by all means.
Right.
And it also, the egg is another discussion point here that I think there has been a little bit of a redemption for the egg, that we have, for a long time, really, I think, villainized it. And in fact, it is rich in dietary cholesterol, but a lot of studies are showing that it may not be quite as bad for us as we thought once upon a time. It's also a very good, inexpensive source of protein as well. It's got some omega-3s and everything else. So it's not as bad as I think we once billed it to be. Dr. Oz here, and I'm not saying he's the ultimate authority in it, but he recommends now 1 egg per day as being perfectly fine, which is before I don't think I ever recommended that to patients. I would actually tell them to stay away from it quite a bit. I've started eating a little bit more as well. I don't eat a ton of them, just don't have the time sometimes during the week, but we'll eat a couple eggs per week maybe. So I think the egg is making a comeback.
Yeah, I think I've always thought that that was an overblown criticism myself, and I think, as you said, a great source of protein, and it is very filling. And we advocate a lot of patients eat salads, and of course salads alone are somewhat unfulfilling. So adding an egg on a salad, quartering a hard-boiled egg can really be quite a great addition in that regard.
So I think it's a good source of protein, absolutely.
So I think that's definitely the case.
And so other things that he dove into in here, one thing was red wine, for example. And we've talked about that, I think, numerous times on this show beforehand. But the reputation of red wine has improved, and I think you see so many different reports in the media, but there's a compound, an antioxidant, found in the skins of the grape called resveratrol. It's great. It sounds great. It's an antioxidant, but to get enough of that through drinking wine, you'd have to drink tens of, 60, 50, 70 liters of wine. So I wouldn't be drinking red wine for that reason necessarily. Nevertheless, a lot of people still feel that red wine's a good drink. It's relatively few calories. It raises your HDL. There's possibility, that's your good cholesterol. There's possibility it might even lower your LDL, your bad cholesterol, a little bit. And one of the touchy-feely things that he gets into a little bit, which may have some merit, is that wine is generally consumed in the company of others, and that it is thought, and actually more than thought, it's known that social interaction and human connection is an important part of maintaining health. And so he threw that out there, too, as another reason of why wine drinkers might have some health benefits as well.
Right, but I want to be very clear about what I know you would want to emphasize as well, is that how much. And we talk about glasses, but can we be very clear? Because I'll just tell you an anecdote. Recently, a patient had a problem where he told me that he drank 2 to 4 glasses of wine per day, and he had a very weakened heart from alcohol use. Okay. So I had to delve into exactly what was, and it was quite clear that a glass was like a coffee cup mug size. So
glass of wine, 4 ounces.
Right. So he was drinking. He was calling each cup was 12 ounces of wine. So 4 times 12 is 48 ounces. Where you're talking about 4, maybe 6.
4, yeah. They often say for men 1 to 2 glasses of wine per day. For women 1. Right. And a glass, when we refer to a glass of wine, is defined as 4 ounces. Right. 4 ounces is not that much.
Right, it's not that much. So we want to just be very clear. That's what we're talking about.
That's a very important point. And if there's certain conditions where we would say just stay off it altogether. Right. Such as the patient you're referring to. Right. People have had some liver condition, other things. So, but we're making some generalities here with this type of stuff. But absolutely, the quantity is an important distinction because there are studies showing that when you get past a certain amount, there's a deleterious effect as well.
Right. Well, but that amount is very low. That's over 2. Yeah. So yes. So we want to be very clear that because it's an American phenomenon that 1 is good, 2 must be better, and 3 is fantastic, and that's not what we're saying.
That's definitely not the case.
We're saying 1 is good, 2 might be too much already, and 3 is definitely not good.
Yeah, I would agree. The good news with all this stuff here is that chocolate has a little bit of a better reputation now too, but not just any chocolate. Going and buying a Reese's peanut butter cup or whatever candy bar you like. That's not what's the point here. Dark, pure chocolate, they are rich in antioxidants in the form of flavonoids. The darker the chocolate, the less adulterated it is with milk and other ingredients. And moderation is the key. So, Dr. Oz here refers to having an ounce per week at the most. That's not very much. An ounce of, chocolate is, a couple little squares.
Well, 1 ounce is good. 2 ounces must be great.
No. So things change when you start to, and that's the key here is moderation. that, eating a whole, you buy a big chocolate bar like this and eat that in one sitting, that's not so good.
Okay.
But, the small amounts of dark chocolate can be good. Lots of studies have been coming out lately with dark chocolate, so we can talk about that more later. Nuts have made a comeback again as well. For a while now. I mean, a long time ago, I can remember being told, avoid nuts at all costs. They got cholesterol, they got this, that, the other thing. No nuts. And in fact, they're a pretty good source of certain types of fats. They can lower your LDL, actually, and they can curb your hunger. Dr. Alice made the comment in here that before he's going out for a big dinner, a celebration dinner, or a big meal, he'll eat a handful of nuts to curb his hunger and fill himself up a little bit, which is not a bad strategy at all. There's certainly some nuts that are better than other nuts.
Well, we talk about those, because you did that good job with oil, so help us with nuts. Are all nuts created equal here?
They're definitely not all created equal, and I know a lot of people really like cashews, for example, or peanuts, and those aren't the nuts that are considered quite as favorable.
Those are low.
Those are lower.
Okay.
The better ones are the walnuts or the almonds.
Walnuts and almonds on the top?
Yeah.
Cashews and peanuts on the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's simple. I mean, I don't, there's a lot of other nuts I never delved in. I don't eat Brazil nuts or these other nuts.
Pistachios, where were the pistachios?
Yeah, I don't know where pistachios fall in there. Do you know?
I don't know either.
I don't know either.
I would like to know.
Yeah, they taste good. They're often loaded with salt, is one thing.
Yes.
Well,
that's an important point, though, that we just joked about, but that is key. And when we're talking about nuts, we were talking unsalted, roasted, presumably nuts that we're talking about.
Yeah, when you look at the ingredients on the bottle, they can start listing, they should just be dry roasted nuts, and that's it, nothing else. And that's what we're talking about, not the stuff with the salt or all sorts of sugar, honey roasted, all these other things. We're not talking about that.
Right.
Just plain nuts. So it's a good thing, nuts. So he also refers back to coffee. For a long time, the health conscientious would shun coffee like the plague. And it depends what you're doing with your coffee. If you're drinking a supersized thing with extra cream, extra sugar, well, that's not what we're talking about here. But a small amount of 6 ounces of coffee or 8 ounces of coffee or an espresso or something like that, the polyphenols in coffee are a very rich source, good antioxidants. And so there's some benefit to that. Again, it all comes back to moderation. I can remember I was recently in Italy, and I can remember having coffee there, and it would come in a little tiny, espresso thing, and I was done. That was it. Whereas here, I'm used to drinking, a much larger mug of coffee, sipping on it for a long time, and it was a very different thing. But I can see why this little portion here was a much better thing for me to do.
Up until this point of your discussion, you've basically talked exclusively about plants, except for eggs. So, and they're basically pretty much all the unadulterated version of plants. So I think some people call plant-based whole food eating.
Yes.
So that's pretty much what you've talked about thus far. So I guess just to try to distill this for our audience, anything that you can eat that's as close to the way it came off the tree is good.
Well, it's funny, at the very end of his article, he actually makes the comment of sort of, well, how do you boil this down to be simple? And the simple thing is, eat things that look as close to as they would have looked when they came off the tree. And he made the comment, there's no such thing as a marshmallow tree, which I think is a great point. It's got to look like a food item, and the more whole food it appears to be, then I think generally speaking, the better it is. And I think there's no such thing as the miracle food or the superfood or the one new thing that's going to cure everything. It's just not that simple, I don't think. But I wanted to jump into the notion of milk, which is a very interesting thing to me, because people are starting to talk more about whole milk once again. We've always, a lot of us, I think, have made the push to get to skim milk. You're going to drink milk, drink skim milk. But I think it's much more complex than that, or it seems to be much more complex than that. One thing, the calcium that's in there binds with the fat in the food and that's being digested in your gut. So milk is good, even though it's a high-calorie beverage. You absorb less fat as a result. And studies suggest that there's actually really no difference between skim milk drinkers, low-fat milk drinkers, or whole milk drinkers when it comes to weight control. So why is that? One thought is that when you take the fat out of milk, now you are left with nothing more than a high concentration of the natural sugars, which then interacts somewhat poorly with your body's insulin response, almost like candy, like you were ingesting candy. And I think it's a compelling argument. I can't say that I'm an expert in that specific field, but it makes sense to me. And so there is an argument to be made, I think, for reverting back a little bit, smaller portions, the fat that's in there causes satiety and contentness, and I think in the end you probably end up eating less.
Yeah. One of the things that I've found that I didn't know until recently was that in many of the carbohydrate restrictive diets, it's recommended to limit your amount of sugar per day. And one goal is around 16 grams of sugar per day is felt to be a good goal to try to achieve. And a cup of milk of any kind, whether it's whole, skim, or 1%, contains 8 grams of sugar. So you basically have a fair amount of sugar in milk, no matter what. So it's sort of a strategy that I think that, you know, some of these things we were sort of taught from our youth that this is healthy, this is good, and milk is, I think, falls into that category for many people, that this is a natural, good food.
Well, it's interesting, sorry to interrupt, but you know, you think you're doing the right thing at breakfast, and you get that bowl of cereal, and you pour in, say, some granola or something you think's healthy, but you look at the box and it's loaded with sugar. And then you pour the milk on, same thing, and then you may have coffee with some sugar in it.
Right.
Orange juice, and what you thought was a pretty healthy meal is loaded with sugar.
Right. So there's a lot of sugar in that, and then I think that what many people experience is what, you know, we've personally experienced is that insulin levels rise, and then people are hungry at 10:30 and looking for a donut.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's much more complicated than what we thought it was, and just going to buy the fat-free foods is not the answer, and I think we've come a long way. So speaking of the fat-free thing, it brings me to the discussion about the diet fads or the diet of the month things, and the landscape is really strewn with all sorts of weight loss crazes that have come and gone, and I think we mentioned this at the beginning, that the public's generally disappointed, frustrated, confused, and certainly no healthier than they were before all these crazes and fads have come by. It's hard I guess the point he makes here is that don't jump onto these fad diets. It need not be that complicated, and to go to the simpler whole foods type of approach makes sense. Well,
I guess the only thing I would say that I don't know if it's disagreeing with that point and Dr. Oz's point, or whether this is something that, but my personal experience is that different people, based on their personality or temperament, may be more successful with different diets. And it may not be for a nutrition science reason, it just may be the way they conduct themselves.
Sure, yeah.
There's a recent article actually just this month in one of the journals about the efficacy of the Weight Watchers diet. And I know that we have some staff in our office. Some of the nurses have had good success with Weight Watchers. And it may be just a temperament. And I know my temperament wouldn't be very suitable for that, to go in and get weighed weekly and whatnot. And I know that in the past, when I've tried to lose weight with different strategies to try to get a few pounds off, I've had success with different strategies, but a carbohydrate restrictive diet seems to work better for me. So I think that there are both biologic, metabolic, personal things, but also just temperament things that, so when you say, or Dr. Oz has said, don't jump on the diet, I think trying some different diets, and giving them an honest try, keeping in the background that you have to be sensible is probably right.
No, it's a fair point. I think absolutely everyone does things differently and responds differently. And I guess the point that maybe I didn't say was that some of these very restrictive diets, adherence is a very major issue. For example, the true original Atkins diet, where it essentially eliminates every bit of carbohydrate, no fruit, vegetables, nothing. I think the body needs some, and it's going to crave it, and the diet's going to ultimately fail. And the weight loss that people did achieve, and they achieved a lot of weight loss, was largely from fluid losses, diuresis. And so cutting back on carbohydrates is one thing, but eliminating them entirely, I think, is a flawed. I think his argument, and I think many's argument, is that when they refer to omnivores, they refer to it not so much meat and vegetable, but omnivores being eating from all the major food groups, the 4 major food groups, and that these different food groups exist for a reason, but just got to do it sensibly. I think we're getting a little short on time here, and so I want to sort of dive into a part of this that we refer to as the hard truth, and that it's still true that when you want to maintain a healthy weight, calories consumed and calories burned needs to be balanced, and you tip the scale one way or the other, and you have weight gain or weight loss. That's not anything new or revelationary, but now we're learning a lot about not just how much, and this is your point at the very beginning, not just how much food we take in, but what food we take in plays a major role. And there was a landmark study in the New England Journal of Medicine recently talking about this, looking at the foods we eat. And in their study, it was over 120,000 people. The foods that were most associated with putting on weight were French fries, potato chips, soda and juices, so sugary drinks, meats, sweets, and refined grains. The foods most associated with shedding pounds, yogurt, nuts, whole grains, fruits, vegetables.
And I think that article tried to make the point that not only were those bad ones that you described at the beginning bad because of the calories, but they actually created people to get more hungry. They ate more when they ate French fries.
Right. Well, it was so the point he makes here in this article is that your body, your brain, I guess I should say, is wired to look for nutrients. It's not necessarily looking for calories, it's looking for nutrients. And when you sit down to eat a plate of French fries, a bowl of ice cream, there ain't a whole lot of nutrients in there. And so you keep eating. Your brain doesn't tell you to shut it off. Whereas when you sit down to a plate of lean meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, or anything, your brain turns it off much more quickly to step away, you're done, you're content. I don't know the science behind all that, but it sounds good. It's interesting to me, certainly. And so I think there is something to be said. And I think that was the premise of that New England Journal article as well, talking about just that they actually threw out the graphic in this article here, somebody who eats more nuts versus French fries, and over the time period with the nut eater, you have a weight loss of a couple pounds. With the French fry eater, there's a weight gain of 5-6 pounds or something, which probably doesn't surprise too many people.
Yes. The problem, of course, I think, and largely, though, is that we have to be honest that it is more expensive to eat better in that regard. Nuts do cost more than French fries. 99 cents for French fries, and, get good nuts is going to be several dollars as a sort of snack. So
absolutely, and that's a major barrier, no doubt about it.
So we're running out of time, but can you give us just a good menu? Just quickly hit us with a good menu. Just what things should people think about next time they're circling the grocery store? What do they need to add that they haven't been adding?
Yeah, so there are a few quick bullet points he put through in the article. So I'm just telling you what he passed forward here, some good ideas. So one thing for a good source of dairy, Greek yogurt. There's a lot of good extra protein in there. You feel full longer, so that's a pretty good thing. Quinoa, which a lot of people might not even know what that is, but it's a grain. It's also very rich in protein. It's a good source of fiber, amino acids. It's available in the rice sections of the grocery store. It's very good. You can make it with all sorts of spices to make it taste good, what have you. Sweet potatoes are a food item that's rich in vitamin A. Juiced greens, juiced greens, I'm sorry, people talk about. We didn't talk about juicing, but a lot of people are into juicing their vegetables and greens. Oatmeal with flaxseed oils, something people like to do. Spinach, walnuts we talked about. Lean cuts of meat with turkey, chicken, fish, salmon. So that's a basic starting thing here.
Great. Well, I mean, you've mentioned a bunch of things that hopefully will ring in people's minds as they're circling the local grocery store to get an idea about some things that they can add into their menu for family cooking and for better nutrition. So another great review of a topic that I think is in the forefront of people's minds and certainly in the media. And I thank you again. Dr. Srivastava has done a great job reviewing a pretty complex topic that is in evolution. And we thank our patients in advance for their patience because this is a changing topic and will require continued study. So until next time, I'm Seth Bilazarian. Thanks for joining us on Haverhill Community Television. This has been Matters of the Heart. Good night.